This is Outer Wilds. No, not Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds is a small indie game that I hadn't heard about until it popped up on Xbox Game Pass. It's quite an enjoyable little game that has you exploring a solar system whilst in a perpetual time loop. There is a lot of stuff you can discover that'll keep you trying to figure out the mysteries behind the game. I think if you try it, you'll end up really enjoying it, but that's not really saying much. I'll show you what I think of the game. Warning, there will be minor spoilers. I'm going to use a system to rate the game. It's called the Yeats score. The Yeats doesn't mean anything, but it's like the game horse. The game gets a letter for a point on the score. Since this is a puzzle exploration game, I'll be giving out 5 points to score. Engagement, puzzles, fun, exploration potential, and depth. The game will get a letter if it scores a point. So, let's get into it. The game is incredibly engaging, with every planet, asteroid, moon, space station being really interesting with its own unique landmarks, locations, and secrets. Not to mention all the puzzles are really fun. There is also the constant fear of damaging your equipment, running into hostile creatures, or various other hazards in the game. The game does a lot to keep you engaged. Especially the time loop that allows you to experiment without consequences, which lets you further toy with the game systems to keep you engaged. However, there are some times in the game that will break your engagement with the game. For example, at certain points you can literally not figure out how to do a section of the game without looking up a tutorial, or you can't do anything right. One of the late game puzzles is so incredibly frustrating that I quit with it altogether and looked up a tutorial. So, in terms of engagement, I'm giving it a half point. Next, puzzles. This game has a handful of puzzles to get into certain locations. You'll have to fire off your probes or scouts into certain areas to figure out how to get in. Sometimes, you have to experiment with it in order to figure out how to enter the area. Some of the puzzles are really annoying, but I guess that makes them good puzzles. The feeling of excitement as I complete those mind-numbing puzzles is exhilarating. It all makes sense once you do it, and the puzzles are all pretty good. Therefore, the game gets a point on the score for this. Third, we have fun. This game is really fun. However, at some points when you start running out of things to do, it gets stale. You'll get down to those puzzles you couldn't do, and it just makes you annoyed. However, one thing that I find very fun is the resource management system of the game. You have to sparsely use your fuel in order to explore the solar system. You also can damage your spacecraft. The game has some pretty fun areas to explore, especially the planet named Brittle Hollow. The planet cracks and is destroyed during the time you play, and opens up new areas with a black hole at the center. It's pretty awesome to gravity sling around the inside of the planet. The frightening atmosphere of the dark bramble, as you inch past the aggressive creature, is also pretty fun. The bad thing is, when you don't have any LEDs after you explored all the planets, but there are locations you didn't notice, it gets a little boring. So, for fun, I'd give it half a point. Fourth, we have exploration potential. Oh my gosh, this game has so much exploration in it. During the early parts of the game you will feel overwhelmed. There are so many locations that have locations inside of them, it's crazy. You have a lot to explore during the starting area, which is already insane amounts. There are little notes detailing people who have went through the system. During the late game it gets really interesting as previously inaccessible locations become accessible, including the Wandering Planet. As you explore, the game teaches you how to access late game things whilst allowing you to explore and have fun. There are tons of little things in landmarks and science centers to mess with and see if it gives a clue to something you hadn't found before. Therefore, the game gets a point for exploration potential. Lastly, we have depth. This game has some pretty awesome levels of depth to it. On top of all the interesting locations, there are notes, scrolls, gadgets, teleporters, and all sorts of things to mess around with. Not to mention almost all the locations in the game have some sort of unique thing to it. There is also a background plot that you can explore if you want to that explains lots of things that happen within the game that explain the story of each location. There is so much depth to the game that the ship log has tons of markers to point you in the direction, and even those have little things to them. Lots of locations have multiple scrolls for you to translate that give you pointers and recovery to the plot. Therefore, this gives a point. So, the game gets a 4 out of 5, which, in my opinion, is well deserving. This game is really fun, but some of the late game puzzles are mind-numbingly annoying, and are a big turn-off. However, if you can get past those faults, this game is really fun, and a worthwhile game to buy or pick up on Xbox Game Pass. Not to mention all the themes that you can pick up in the game, that I'll let you pick up. Anyways, that's it, hope you enjoy.